Imagine this, a young boy from the gritty streets of Istanbul's Kasımpaşa neighborhood pushing a red cart loaded with sesame bread rings called simit, shouting to sell them amid the chaos of traffic and crowds, all while dreaming bigger than his modest circumstances allowed. Fast forward decades, and that same boy stands as one of the most powerful leaders in the world, reshaping Turkey from a secular republic into a presidential system centered on his vision, surviving a coup attempt, and becoming a dominant figure in global politics for over 2 decades. This is the extraordinary story of Recep Tayyip Erdoğan, Turkey's president, a man often described as having the toughness of a street fighter who rose through resilience, charisma, and unyielding ambition to command the heart of a nation. His journey is not just one of personal triumph, but a reflection of Turkey's complex transformation in the 21st century, from economic hope to polarization, from reform to controversy. Erdoğan was born on 26 February 1954, in the working-class district of Kasımpaşa in Beyoğlu, Istanbul, to a conservative Muslim family originally rooted in the Black Sea coastal town of Rize in northern Turkey, with some reports tracing deeper family origins to the Adzara region in Georgia. His father, Ahmet Erdoğan, worked as a Coast Guard officer and later a sea captain on the Bosphorus, a stern figure whose discipline and occasional strictness shaped the household. His mother, Tenzile, came from a similarly modest background. The family briefly moved back to Rize when Recep was very young, where he spent part of his early childhood before returning to Istanbul around age 13, seeking better opportunities in the big city. Life in Kasımpaşa was tough. It was a rough, vibrant neighborhood known for its resilient, no-nonsense residents, and young Recep absorbed that street-smart ethos deeply. Money was tight. Erdoğan has often recounted how his father gave him a small weekly allowance, about 2.5 Turkish lira, less than $1 at the time, and he had to make it stretch or earn more. As a teenager, he sold lemonade, watermelons, postcards, and especially simit from a 3-wheeled cart, wearing a simple white gown as he navigated the bustling streets. These experiences grounded him in the struggles of ordinary Turks, fostering a connection to the working class and conservative Anatolian values that would later define his political appeal. He attended Kasımpaşa Pyale Primary School and then the Istanbul Imam Hatip School, a religious vocational high school that trained future imams and preachers. In secular Turkey under the Kemalist legacy, such schools were sometimes looked down upon by the urban elite, but for Erdoğan, it was a place where his oratory skills blossomed. He became a charismatic speaker, drawn to Islamist ideas and social justice themes even as a student. To earn his high school diploma, he also passed exams at Eyüp High School. Later, he studied at Marmara University's Faculty of Economics and Commercial Sciences, graduating in 1981. Throughout his youth, he played semi-professional football for clubs like Kamerspor, learning teamwork, discipline, and the thrill of competition, skills he would later say translated into his political life. His father reportedly discouraged a full professional career, pushing him toward more stable paths, but the pitch taught him resilience and how to fight for victory. Erdoğan's entry into politics came early, influenced by the Islamist movement gaining ground in the 1970s amid Turkey's turbulent politics, economic woes, and ideological clashes between secular Kemalists and more religious conservatives. He joined the National Turkish Students Association and became active in parties led by Necmettin Erbakan, the veteran Islamist politician who challenged the secular establishment. Turkey's political scene was volatile, with frequent military interventions to protect the republic's founding secular principles. Erdoğan rose through the ranks of Erbakan's welfare party, Refah Partisi, known for its conservative, pro-Islamic platform that resonated with pious, lower and middle-class voters overlooked by the traditional elites. His breakthrough came in 1994 when he was elected mayor of Istanbul on the welfare party ticket, winning with a plurality in a stunning upset that shook the secular establishment. At the time, Istanbul was plagued by chronic problems, water shortages, pollution, traffic congestion, and poor municipal services. Erdoğan proved pragmatic and effective, tackling infrastructure issues head-on, improving water supply, cleaning up the city, and even banning alcohol in city-owned venues while navigating protests over urban projects. He earned a reputation as a competent manager who delivered results for the people, blending Islamist roots with practical governance. Supporters saw him as a fresh voice against corruption and inefficiency. Critics viewed his election as a threat to Ataturk's secular vision. But success brought scrutiny. In 1997 to 1998, during a period of tension with the secular military and judiciary, Erdoğan faced legal trouble. While reciting a poem at a rally in sight, lines comparing mosques to barracks, minarets to bayonets, and the faithful to an army, he was convicted of inciting religious hatred, a charge rooted in Turkey's strict secular laws that banned overt religious politicking. Sentenced to 10 months in prison, he served about 4 months in 1999, an experience that became a badge of honor for his supporters, portraying him as a victim of the establishment. He resigned as mayor but emerged from prison more determined. This period marked a turning point. When Erbakan's parties faced bans, Erdoğan and reformists like Abdullah Gül broke away from the old guard, founding the Justice and Development Party, AKP, in 2001. They positioned it as a conservative democratic force, downplaying radical Islamism in favor of pro-market reforms, EU accession talks, and broader freedoms, appealing to a wider electorate frustrated with economic crisis and political instability. The AKP's message resonated. Clean governance, economic growth, and respect for traditional values without upending the system entirely. The 2002 general elections were a landslide. The AKP won a massive parliamentary majority, capitalizing on public disillusionment with previous coalitions that had led to high inflation, debt, and instability. However, Erdoğan's prior conviction initially barred him from parliament and the premiership. A constitutional amendment in late 2002 lifted the ban, and he won a by-election in Siirt in 2003, quickly becoming prime minister. This was the start of his dominant era. As prime minister from 2003 to 2014, Erdoğan oversaw a remarkable economic boom. Inflation was tamed, the Turkish lira was stabilized by removing 6 zeros, foreign investment poured in amid EU candidacy hopes, and GDP per capita rose significantly, from around $3,000 in 2002 to peaks over $12,000 by 2012. Millions were lifted out of poverty, a new middle class emerged in conservative Anatolia, and massive infrastructure projects transformed the country, new airports, bridges, highways, hospitals, and housing. The AKP government initiated reforms expanding religious freedoms, lifting the headscarf ban in universities, advancing minority rights as part of EU negotiations, and curbing the military's outsized role in politics through trials like Ergenekon and Sledgehammer, which targeted alleged coup plotters. Internationally, Turkey was hailed as a model, a Muslim-majority democracy with strong growth, mediating in the Middle East, and pursuing zero problems with neighbors' foreign policy. Erdoğan himself became a charismatic figure on the world stage, praised by some as a reformer who blended Islam with modernity. Yet, beneath the successes, tensions simmered. Critics accused the government of gradually eroding secular checks, packing institutions with loyalists, and using corruption probes selectively. The 2013 Gezi Park protests began as a small demonstration against developing a park in central Istanbul into a shopping mall with Ottoman-style barracks but exploded into nationwide anti-government unrest over authoritarian tendencies, police brutality, restrictions on alcohol, and urban planning. Erdoğan responded forcefully, calling protesters looters and extremists and framing it as a foreign-backed plot involving interest lobbies to undermine Turkey's rise. Dozens died, thousands were injured, and the events deepened polarization. That same year, a major corruption scandal involving AKP figures and ministers erupted, which Erdoğan dismissed as a judicial coup orchestrated by his former ally, the Gülen movement. A powerful Islamic network led by cleric Fethullah Gülen, once allied with the AKP but now seen as a rival infiltrating state institutions. Relations soared completely. Erdoğan labeled Gülenists a terrorist organization. Economically, growth slowed, and the lira faced pressures. Despite this, the AKP won elections in 2007 and 2011 with strong majorities, bolstered by Erdoğan's personal popularity among pious and rural voters who credited him with dignity, services, and standing up to elites. By 2014, after 3 terms as Prime Minister, term limits loomed. Erdoğan ran for and won the presidency in Turkey's first direct popular election for the office, previously a largely ceremonial role filled by parliament. He became the 12th president, vowing to transform the system. His presidency accelerated centralization of power. A 2017 referendum, narrowly passed amid controversy over fairness, shifted Turkey to an executive presidential system, abolishing the prime minister post and expanding presidential authority over appointments, decrees, and institutions. Critics warned of authoritarian drift, media crackdowns intensified, with journalists jailed or outlets seized, judicial independence was questioned. And opposition voices faced legal hurdles. The economy became a flashpoint. Erdoğan advocated unorthodox policies, lowering interest rates to combat inflation, a stance clashing with conventional economics, leading to lira crashes, high inflation spikes, reaching 80% or more at times, and currency crisis, especially after 2018. Supporters blamed external economic wars or past protests, detractors pointed to governance issues and eroded investor confidence. Infrastructure megaprojects continued, like Istanbul's massive new airport and the Marmaray Tunnel, symbolizing ambition, but debt and inequality grew for many. The defining moment of his presidency came on 15 July 2016, when a faction within the military attempted a coup d'état, deploying tanks, jets, and soldiers in major cities, including an assault on Erdoğan's hotel in Marmaris. Erdoğan was on vacation but escaped and famously used FaceTime on a journalist's phone to call citizens to the streets and airports to resist. Thousands heeded the call, facing down soldiers. Over 250 people died in the clashes. The coup failed within hours as loyal forces and public mobilization prevailed. Erdoğan declared it a gift from God, using the event to launch a massive purge. Tens of thousands were arrested or dismissed from jobs, soldiers, judges, teachers, police, academics. Linked to the Gülen movement, which he blamed entirely. Emergency rule followed, enabling sweeping changes. While many Turks, across divides, opposed the coup, critics argued the response went far beyond plotters, consolidating power and silencing dissent. The event justified further institutional reforms and a harder line against perceived internal enemies. In foreign policy, Erdoğan's Turkey became more assertive. Early EU accession talks stalled over Cyprus, human rights and rule of law concerns. Relations with the West frayed. NATO ally Turkey bought Russian S-400 missiles, leading to exclusion from the F-35 program. He clashed with European leaders over migrant deals, Kurdish issues, and free speech. Regionally, Turkey intervened in Syria against Assad, ISIS, and Kurdish groups, launching operations that created safe zones and refugee returns while drawing accusations of expansionism. It supported opposition in Libya, backed Azerbaijan, and brokered the 2022 Black Sea grain deal with the UN amid the Ukraine war, showcasing diplomatic leverage. Ottoman nostalgia grew. Grand presidential palaces, ceremonies evoking imperial history, and rhetoric about Turkey's historical grandeur. Domestically, he championed conservative values, expanding religious education, building mosques, including one backed by the state in a century, and positioning Turkey as a defender of Muslim causes, from Palestine to Rohingya. Yet, this came with polarization. Secularists, Kurds, liberals, and Alevis often felt marginalized. Elections remained competitive. He narrowly won the 2018 and 2023 presidential races, the latter after a runoff, relying on a loyal base, nationalist alliances, and framing opponents as threats to stability and faith. Economic hardships tested support, but his narrative of resilience against coups, plots, and global pressures sustained it. Erdoğan's legacy is profoundly divisive, much like the man himself. To millions of supporters, he is a transformative leader who restored dignity to the pious majority, modernized infrastructure, grew the economy initially, elevated Turkey's global standing, and defended sovereignty against internal and external foes. He outlasted many challengers, becoming the longest-serving ruler since Ataturk, and remade the republic in a more presidential, conservative mold. Books and analyses described him as a master populist who channels grievances, uses charisma and oratory honed on streets and stages to mobilize crowds, and turns crises into opportunities. In interviews and speeches, he often invokes faith, nation, and history, standing firm against interest lobbies, foreign conspiracies, or those who insult the people. He has said things like emphasizing service to the Ummah or rejecting dictates from abroad, projecting strength. For critics, his rule marks democratic backsliding, press freedom rankings plummeted, opposition mayors faced arrests, judiciary politicized, and economy mismanaged, with inflation eroding gains. Gezi, the coup response, and purges are cited as turning points toward one-man rule. Turkey today grapples with high inflation, lira volatility, refugee burdens, and polarized society, yet it remains a regional power with advanced defense industries like drones. His story echoes a street fighter's. Scrappy origins, early punches from the system, relentless comeback, and a refusal to yield the ring. What lessons emerge from Erdoğan's epic rise? First, authenticity and connection to the people matter. His humble beginnings and tough neighborhood image built unbreakable loyalty among those who felt ignored by elites. Second, timing and adaptation are key. He reformed his image from Islamist firebrand to pro-EU conservative Democrat when it suited, then pivoted to nationalist strongman as contexts shifted. Third, resilience in the face of adversity, prison, protests, coups can forge a mythic narrative. But the darker side warns of polarization's costs. Deepening divides can fuel instability, economic orthodoxy ignored can harm ordinary lives, and unchecked power risks eroding institutions that sustain long-term success. Turkey under Erdoğan is neither the sick man of Europe nor a flawless success story. It's a vibrant, contradictory nation navigating modernity, faith, and geopolitics. Whether one admires his defiance or critiques his methods, his journey proves that from selling simit on Istanbul streets to commanding the presidential palace, a determined fighter can rewrite a country's destiny. In the end, Erdoğan's story reminds us that leadership is forged in struggle, sustained by vision, and judged by history, not just victories, but the nation left behind. As Turkey enters its second century as a republic, his imprint will endure, for better or worse, challenging future generations to balance strength with pluralism, ambition with accountability,